Okay, so it's been asked a lot by me, by everybody, of what's going on with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Why are they, again, it's hard to say struggling, like they're currently the number one seed in the AFC, but their offense still doesn't look quite what it has been, and it's had some good weeks. It's bounced back. The issue isn't necessarily as big as it was 5 weeks ago. However, I was looking through his numbers, and I think I kind of found something that there's a clear drop-off in one particular area. There's a lot of interesting numbers, but there's one area in particular that kind of took me back a little bit and made me think, maybe that's why they're struggling. Don't know exactly why it is, but let's just, instead of talking about it in a general sense, let's just get into what it actually is. So this was the stat that just jumped out at me. So when he gets rid of the ball in less than 2.5 seconds, he has the 10th best Pro Football Focus grade and the 3rd best passer rating. However, when it takes him more than 2.5 seconds to get rid of the ball, and this is, by the way, relative to the rest of the league. So 3rd best passer rating among quarterbacks when they also throw the ball in less than 2.5 seconds. So Mahomes great at that, but when it takes him longer than 2.5 seconds to throw the ball, his PFF grade drops to 22nd in the league, and his passer rating drops to 31st in the league. This is kind of like a stunning stat and a huge disparity from a guy who we kind of view as like the best playmaker in football. Like that's what we view Mahomes as, a guy who, when things go wrong, he can scramble outside the pocket and then find time and then hit Tyreek Hill for a 70-yard touchdown. Like that's what he's known for. Hasn't been happening this year. Is this a this year thing though, or has he always been not great at this and it's just, I'm just noticing it now? So I decided to just find out. This is it from this year versus last year, and you notice, no, this is a relatively new thing. This is when he throws the ball and it takes him more than 2.5 seconds to do so. Like I said, this year, 22nd in PFF grade, 31st in passer rating. The year before, he was 4th in PFF grade and 9th best in passer rating. So maybe not elite at it, but still really good at it, and now he's fallen to terrible. And why is this the case? I really don't know. Like, I can't think of too much. Maybe it's just there have been some bad interceptions this year that there weren't last year. I don't know. Maybe that's a factor. I do feel like I have seen him make some bad decisions this year when he's under pressure that, those affect passer rating and even PFF grade to some degree. It would also explain why the passer rating is much worse than the PFF grade in terms of this year. I also think it's possible that, to some degree, this isn't necessarily just because the first part of the play doesn't work, but maybe it's because you're getting to like your third option, which obviously, as we all know, the Chiefs have really lacked a consistent third option this year. Great first two options with Kelsey and Hill, but that third option has been an issue. Whereas, last year, really, even if it was the same players, guys were still getting open last year. And of course, they did at least have Sammy Watkins for the amount of time they had him. So that's also an aspect of this as well. This next thing is also very fascinating. So he has the second most percentage of pressure where a quarterback shares some responsibilities. So when he's taking the ball, holding onto the ball for too long, things are going wrong. Like when things aren't working immediately, they just stay not working. And what's fascinating is usually when you see someone who creates a lot of their own pressure, just so you understand how this stat works, this is the PFF stat, so you could argue there's some, it is up to interpretation to some degree. However, still, it's fascinating. And I think what's interesting about this is he gets rid of the ball 18th fastest in football. That's average time to throw. So he's around middle of the pack in terms of when he gets rid of the football, but he's creating a ton of his own pressures. Does this mean the offensive line is bad? I don't think so. The offensive line, I feel when I've watched it, has actually been pretty good this year. I don't think that it's the offensive line's fault. What I think it is personally is that he's either getting rid of the ball immediately or he's holding on to the ball for a long time. It's kind of a boom or bust mentality with Patrick Mahomes. He's either has the ball out of his hands immediately or he is trying to scramble around and make something happen, which can create some own pressures to come his way. So that's my reading on it. You look at this chart, this is going to be where he ranks in terms of under pressure, when he's kept clean, when he's blitzed, and versus when he's not blitzed. There's kind of another interesting thing here. But first, let's talk about under pressure versus kept clean. He performs well either way. He definitely performs better relative to his peers in terms of passer rating when he's kept clean. However, the PFF grade is actually better when he's under pressure. So that's a little bit interesting. Kind of tells me the team around him isn't performing as well as they should be when he isn't getting pressures. So again, kind of weird as that kind of goes almost directly against the 2.5 seconds aspect. But I think this, again, goes to show, really, yes, he holds onto the ball for a decent amount of time, for a mediocre amount of time, but there's clear differences from when he's either getting rid of the ball immediately or just holding onto the ball for forever. Also, you look at blitzed versus not blitzed. He still is performing better when he's blitzed versus when he's not blitzed, but it's a lot different than what we've seen from Mahomes. We're used to seeing when Mahomes gets blitzed, his passer rating is through the roof. He's the best quarterback in football when he's blitzed. That hasn't been the case this year. He's been kind of middle of the road, a little bit above average in that category this year. So that's another aspect. He's gone from the guy you should never blitz to a guy you can blitz if you want to, which again, to me, tells me it's less about Mahomes and more about the roster, I would assume, because we've seen Mahomes in previous years be good at this stuff. One more thing that I think is fascinating to check out is going to be this chart, which is, how well he does in terms of how far he's throwing the ball down the field, whether it's 20 plus yards down the field, 10 to 19, 0 to 9, or behind the line of scrimmage. And you see that, so it's where he ranks in terms of PFF grades, in terms of passer rating, and the final one is where he ranks in terms of how big a percentage of his passes are in that distance. So it's not 23% of his passes are 20 plus yards down the field. It's he ranks 23rd in how often he throws that far down the field. But you look at the numbers, he still is really good 20 plus yards down the field. They're not doing it as much as they have in previous years, largely because teams are playing a lot more cover 2. And they're really not throwing the ball over the middle that much either. A lot of their passes have been behind the line of scrimmage, which is fascinating to me. I don't know if I love that strategy. Maybe that's an aspect as well. Hey, maybe try to start throwing the ball down the field a little bit more when you have Tyreek Hill. I've kind of talked about how I think Tyreek Hill is a huge weapon. They should throw it to him more. That should be kind of a, sort of the joke of the F it, throw it up the Tyreek Hill meme. Do that. They haven't had as much success over the middle, but they also haven't thrown it that much over the middle. Behind the line of scrimmage has been good, but you're also kind of taking the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands when you do that. So I wanted to see, again, how much is this year? How much of it is it compared to last year? What is going on here? So I decided, let's also look at last year and kind of see how they compare with each other. So here, when he throws the ball 20 plus yards down the field, what you do is you have, his PFF grade about the same, passer rating a little bit greater, but not a huge difference either. Actually, it's a little bit greater this year. So both are actually a little bit better this year, 20 plus yards down the field, which I think would surprise a lot of people. You would think that that's worse, just given that we haven't seen as many highlights. And the biggest reason is they're just not doing it as often. You see they've dropped 6 spots in terms of how far they throw the ball down the field. Big chunk of that is scheme, but still, that's what's happening. This area of the field is where they're really lacking and where the real issue has been and why they haven't been as dominant this year is that 10 to 19 yard down the field range where they've gone from, last year where they were the best in terms of PFF grade with Patrick Mahomes and 9th best in terms of passer rating to 11th best PFF and 18th best passer rating. And you also see they're throwing it there a lot less as well, which kind of makes sense because they haven't been as good, so don't keep throwing it there. But that's been a real area where they've lacked. I wonder how much of that is the lack of a legit third option has, hurt them a bit, and also the scheme of with 2 safety deep, they can crash in and take away that area of the field, so you have to be a bit more careful there. In this 0 to 9 range, they've never thrown it that much in this range, so it's not too surprising, but also worth mentioning, they haven't been as good in this stuff, so, both Mahomes and the team itself has struggled. They went from 6th best both last year to now it's 16th and 11th, so some room to improve on there. And even in these behind the line of scrimmage passes, they haven't performed as well there either, although they're also throwing it a lot less, and I would imagine that's kind of correlated. The more you throw behind the line of scrimmage, the more teams are prepared for it. So 12th would be a much, healthier area to be in than 3rd most, I think, when you have Patrick Mahomes. So yeah, listen, I get it. Teams are playing cover 2 a lot. You have to work underneath. I get all that stuff. But part of me was kind of thinking, you see a team like Arizona and how they still find ways to work out and get explosives down the field. And I feel like when I was thinking about that, I'm like, well, Kansas City used to do this a lot too. I feel like we're not seeing them do it as frequently. And again, part of it is you kind of need to have several different guys who can get down the field quickly to make that work, which just hasn't been the case this year. So I think that's clearly something they have to work on in the offseason or just start doing more in this season, and just, trust that even if you don't love McCole Hardman, even if you don't love Byron Pringle, they can still do things and they can help set up routes. So maybe that kind of stuff is what you want to do. But that's just what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.